join us for our June and continuing for one more week. We've had and will have an amazing lineup of speakers, luminaries, scientists, doctors, and visionaries. We've gathered some of the best in the field to share important information and their take on the psychedelic renaissance. And we can't wait to bring you season 2 this fall. We are in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance with research projects and decriminalization proposals popping up across North America, and with MDMA on the verge of approval as treatment for PTSD, psychedelic therapy is on track to become the next major breakthrough in mental health care. MAPS Canada, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, has supported studies to develop psychedelics into safe and legal medical treatments since its formation in 2008. As you may know, MAPS Canada is funding 2 separate studies on MDMA and cognitive processing therapy as a treatment for PTSD, as well as one to identify psychedelic treatments for eating disorders. And as you know, MAPS Canada relies on public donations and fundraising initiatives. The funds raised from this webinar series will go to fund this research. So thank you to everyone for being here, as you have a hand in that. The webinar series is our final push in our $250,000 fundraiser campaign, and we're currently $11,000 away from our goal. We hope to have this goal achieved by the end of next week, and we really appreciate your help. So ways that you can help: you can donate. There'll be a button at the bottom of the screen at the end of the webinar. Number 2, you can share the fundraiser campaign. There will also be a link. And number 3, you can share the webinar series, which we are in right now. So for some more information on MAPS Canada, please see the website at mapscanada.org. So today we're going to start with a talk from our guest, Kuauhtli, who is joining us all the way from Brazil. After that, we will start our question and answer session. And just remember, you can vote up the questions. We will be prioritizing those. And before we bring in Kuauhtli, I want to give you a little bit of a brief introduction on who he is and where he's from. Kuauhtli's years of involvement in the movement for human rights and activities to preserve the indigenous ways of life served as preservation for his current path. For the past 25 years, he has dedicated himself to continuing and conducting ceremonies using traditional dances, songs, and plants across Mother Earth. Kuauhtli conducts Mexica ceremonies, the flower and song, Native American church tipi meetings, as well as sweat lodges and Mexica danza. The talk today will consist of the physical and spiritual benefits of peyote, presenting 50 years of experience and observations in traditional rituals shared in over 36 countries, with an emphasis on remedies for its modern ills of society. So please help me welcome Kuauhtli. Hello.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Brazil today.
My pleasure. Yeah.
So I'm going to turn the screen over to you, and whenever you're ready, you can just call on me and I'll come right back in.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say greetings to everyone that's listening to this webinar tonight or this afternoon, wherever you are. And I want to say, I guess there was a reason I was supposed to be on the 11th, but now I'm on the 13th, and the 13th is a lucky number for me. So for a hurricane that happened in the East Coast, I wasn't able to be on the 11th seminar, but now I'm on the 13th seminar. And I traveled to Brazil despite this virus. It wasn't very difficult. And so yes, greetings from Brazil. And I will just start by saying that the first time I ate peyote was about 50 years ago. And I don't know if any of your listeners have had the opportunity to know this plant, this little cactus. So I'll give some background information on the plant. Basically, it's a small cactus. It grows anywhere from the maximum size it gets is about this big. And if I was in Texas, I could show you some because I have many growing in my garden. But It grows in the region, the northern part of Mexico, towards the Gulf mountainous region there, and then grows into Texas too. And so where I live in Texas, it's very abundant. And the cactus is already in a form which is um, ingestible. You can eat it where you find it in nature, and you don't really have to do anything to prepare it other than just consume it. Of course, we do rituals before we cut the top of the peyote, which is the part that you eat. There's a root that's about this big in the ground, and then there's a part on the top, which is the part that is commonly seen, which is some people call the button. And so you just slice that part off, and then the root stays in the ground, submerged, and it begins to produce more. You could actually say that the more peyote you eat, the more it will produce, which is something curious about this plant, because as soon as you cut it, like within a day or so, it heals itself. The root does, and the part above also heals the bottom, and you could actually replant this button, and it will develop more roots. So something interesting about this plant is that most plants, if you cut them off of their root, they will perish. However, peyote will remain alive for months after being severed from its root. So this kind of also is an indicator of the strength of the peyote, the spirit of the peyote. And for example, I actually ship many of them to Canada because in Canada it's completely legal to have peyote growing and also to ingest it. So you can send it in the mail, and when it arrives, you just need to prepare a nice box so that it can, deep enough to where its roots can develop. And you just put it on the ground and give it some water, make sure it gets some sunlight, and it will develop more roots. So peyote actually grows anywhere, and I've traveled around the world and taken fresh buttons, and so now there's gardens, peyote gardens growing all over the world. Um, Peyote contains alkaloids. Now, the more famous alkaloid that peyote contains is called mescaline. A German scientist, and I forget his name, my memory, I should have made some notes, but I don't think his name is so important. But about 100 years ago, this German scientist isolated the alkaloid mescaline from the plant and realized that it has effects on the psyche, on the thought processes of humans. What it does, the alkaloids, the way I understand it, they're chemical compounds that actually mirror the molecules that are in the cells of the humans, except that it has like a supercharge on it, the alkaloid. So once it adheres at the molecular level in the cells, it enhances the cell. And this is what alkaloids do. So the alkaloids, about 50 alkaloids that peyote have, each one of these alkaloids, it can match or marry some of the alkaloids that are in your cells in different parts of your system. For example, your endocrine system. Your endocrine system receives many benefits from peyote. And if you wanted to ingest peyote, like what they call microdosing or daily dosing, for like, let's say 2 weeks, you could rectify the hormone production of most of your glands. And for example, if a person was suffering from anxiety, like if they were producing too much adrenaline, by microdosing peyote or daily dosing it for a couple of weeks, the adrenal glands will normalize. And many people who are taking pharmaceuticals for this anxiety, things like this, can get off of their pharmaceuticals. And the same thing with depression. Depression, lots of times, is caused from the glands not producing enough serotonin or endorphins, things like this, and so they're feeling depressed. Well, peyote helps these glands also to produce the proper amount of these hormones. And interestingly enough, these hormones, which are in your endocrine system, are directly related to what you would call your chakras. If people understand what chakras are, these energetic centers in your energetic body. So the the thing I want to mention, excuse me, about peyote, give me just a second, drink some water, is that you can isolate some of these alkaloids. For example, people have isolated mescaline and produced it in laboratories. And you can take the pills or the powder, however they give it to you, and it will have this effect on you. But this is not the same as peyote. It's not the same to take. Also, there's other. I should mention that there's some alkaloids that you could use them as sexual enhancers, because of course your gonads and your ovaries produce hormones that are for your virility. And some chemists in the 60s, they isolated these alkaloids and were selling them actually as sexual enhancers. But this is not the same. When you eat peyote, you're getting not only the alkaloids themselves, the molecules, but you're getting um, the opportunity to contact a plant spirit. And a lot of scientific um, individuals have come to the ceremonies and they go, why do I want to eat all this peyote? Because this has other profound effects on you. Like it starts working on your mental processes. It starts working on your emotions. It starts working on your energetic centers, like your trauma. Or if you have trauma that's been stored up because of a bad relationship or because of parental abuse or something, it starts working on all of these things. And so peyote is best taken in a ceremony where you have certain elements like the fire, water, people are singing and there's people to look after you, because peyote starts producing a lot of healing. Um, I guess in the form of bringing up past traumas and then providing you a method, energy, I guess you could say, energy to see this past in a different light. Peyote increases your ability, your capacity for loving and compassion. The name peyote actually is a Nahuatl word, and it's composed of two words in Nahuatl: yolo, which means heart, and peyoni, which means to illuminate. So when you say the word peyote, you're actually saying what illuminates your heart. And the mythology of peyote, because peyote's been used for, let's say, just to say a number, we'll say 20,000 years. And the ceremonial use of peyote is a foundation for civilizations that live with love and respect. I guess you could say is like the foundation. Their spiritual foundation is love and respect, because it does it opens your heart. It creates an awareness of people's emotions. It creates an awareness of your own actions, and it makes you more sensitive to what's going on around you. In the ceremony, you begin to feel what other people are going through. You know, you're sitting in a circle around a fire, and you're able to observe other people. Well, in my capacity as a ceremonial leader, I'm very aware of this because I'm observing the people, and I can see some of their trauma being healed. So even on a layman level, if you were to take peyote and use it on a daily basis, it would make you more sensitive to other people's emotional situations. Um, what I can say about peyote also is it's something that most humans can relate to. You don't have to be native to really feel the effects of peyote. You know, like this is something I want to point out because in the United States they said that only native people could eat peyote, and we're trying to change that. You know, there's change this whole attitude about this in the United States. I've traveled to many countries, many continents, most of all the continents I've traveled, and I've I've been invited by people, you know, in Europe, in South America, in Africa, in India, you know, Nepal, going up into Russia and Mongolia, into some of the Asian countries, you know, Australia, New Zealand, um, in Canada too. I've gone to Canada quite a bit. And what I found is that these alkaloids work on everyone without exception. And many people are able to rediscover their what you would call indigenous roots because peyote also makes you keenly aware of nature. Like if you want to ingest peyote, the best place to do it is in nature. Um, Sometimes we do it like in the desert or in the mountains or close to the ocean. We've done ceremonies right on the beach. And peyote, like because of it increases your vision, it increases your hearing, it increases your sensitivity. You become very keenly aware of the natural forces. So this is how peyote was used in the past to harmonize human existence with the rest of nature. It gives you a lot of energy. So then they would start dancing and singing to nature. You know, they would sing to the fire, they would sing to the earth, they would sing to the rain, they sing to, you know, dance for the to the wind like this, you know, dance to the four winds. And so this is one of the effects of peyote is that it really it puts you back in sync with your natural environment. And this is you're able to do this wherever. I mean, we had some in the Sahara Desert, in Egypt, uh, you know, close to the Libyan border, and I saw how it affected the people there, and it's very it's the same, you know. In Nepal, the same, you know, in the Himalayas. So it's very useful for people that are trying to rediscover their natural or their indigenous ceremonies. In England, you know, people have Celtic background, and most of the indigenous peoples' religions, or you know, I'd say religion because a lot of people use this word, but their beliefs, their traditional practices are founded on nature. So this is a perfect link. In other words, the peyote helps them to reconnect with their ancient traditions. And when I was in Australia, the Aboriginal leaders, or I should say the native people, you know, I don't know if Aboriginal is the correct word to use, the original people of Australia, some of their leaders participated in the ceremonies, and they remarked how the ceremony, which that we share, our native from North America, from Texas, where I'm from, are identical to the foundation of their ceremonies. And they pointed out, this is exactly what we do, and this is exactly what we do, because it's like this. The peyote comes from a long tradition, spiritual tradition, that is based on humans interacting with nature in a harmonious way. So now bringing it into the modern society, it's interesting to see how people who are in the modern societies, CEOs, politicians, professional people, uh, can come to a ceremony or just microdose on peyote and receive benefits that help them in their everyday activities. So peyote has become very popular in the countries where I visited, and people have requested, and I send them peyote. I have uh, a long list of people that receive peyote and they're using it in their daily life for this reason. It increases your creativity. It increases your intuition. Um, and so it's good for people that are in places where they need to use their intelligence. It gives you different qualities, different perspectives, for problem solving or for like for artwork and music. It's also wonderful, you know. And it's very similar to other plants in this respect. I mean, if you eat mushrooms or San Pedro or some of these other plants that are like found in nature that are already in a form to be ingested, they have wondrous effects on your artistic abilities. I'm a musician myself. I like to play, guitar, and we use other instruments, drums, and this to sing. And this is what I found. Um, it's amazing. You're going to do a recording session or something. You eat a little bit of peyote or some mushrooms or both, and and it's very good. It gives you energy. It gives you like stamina, and it also gives you you receive like I said, a more creative spirit to produce um, music or dancing. Uh, Other benefits that peyote can be attributed to peyote is it's good for community building. I could even say this. I've gone to some circles, ayahuasca circles uh, in particular, and ayahuasca has a certain effect on you. Very, I enjoy ayahuasca. I partake in many ayahuasca ceremonies, Santo Daime. I drank ayahuasca for many years in Colombia with the taitas, yahe, they call it. Peyote has like it's almost, you could say, completely different effect. So it balances you. So a lot of ayahuasca communities benefit from not only doing the ayahuasca ceremonies, but then balancing it out with peyote ceremonies. So this I found uh, people have, you know, I always ask for feedback, from the communities, and they say that peyote and ayahuasca, that's like a balancing act there. Um, what else can I say? It doesn't have any adverse effects. Like for example, if you are taking prescriptions, a lot of people ask me questions about can they come to a peyote ceremony because they're taking certain drugs, drugs that are produced in laboratories. And some of these, you have to be careful with ayahuasca because there's some contradictions. But I've been eating peyote for 50 years and conducting ceremonies for over 25 years. And what I found is there aren't any real contradictions between prescription drugs and the alkaloids that are in peyote. And like I said, I don't know, I've, given peyote to thousands of people in all different parts, and some of them are taking different kinds of prescriptions, for different reasons. I think I need to change this. Testing. I hope this is working. Shanna, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, great. I think I heard a signal from this. I think it was dying out.
You're all good now.
Okay. I don't know, Shanna, maybe you should tell me if I should continue to explain some things about peyote or the ceremonies, or if you want to field some questions, I could continue. I don't know. I saw some people saying hello from different parts, San Diego and Canada and different places. And I don't know if some of your listeners have formulated questions, but I would be happy to answer some questions or to continue explaining more about the benefits of peyote.
Absolutely. That's completely up to you. We do have some people from all over the world here. We have Long Island, we have Italy, we have Winnipeg, we have California, Nova Scotia, Lake of the Woods, Montreal, San Diego. You've got people all over tuning in, and we have about 4 questions submitted here so far. So if you wanted, we could kind of take a break and answer a few questions, and then you could go right back into talking a bit more if you wanted.
Sure. I've actually been to all those places that you mentioned.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
But yes, why don't we take a few questions?
Sounds good. I'll just pop myself back on there here. And let's go to the first question. What is your opinion on the scarcity of peyote? Should we be more conscious of the way it's being consumed? How can we preserve it?
Okay, this is a very prominent question that I've asked quite often. So thank you for fielding that. Actually, as I explained earlier, peyote is a very interesting plant that when you harvest the peyote properly, in other words, if you leave the root in the earth, you don't harm the plant at all. You take the top of the peyote off, and the bottom actually produces more, like it geometrically produces. So if you cut one button, it's going to produce 2 or 3. And as the root's growing, you cut those 2 or 3, and then it starts producing 5 or 6. And then like this, I've seen like as many as 50 peyotes growing off of one root that they become very large. The problem is that the area where the peyote grows is under assault by development. And by development, I mean housing, mining, cattle raising, oil fracking, windmills. This is what's endangering peyote, not the consumption of peyote. So we need to be clear. It's hard for people to eat as many peyotes as there is in the wild. There's millions of them. But if you eradicate the natural habitat of peyote, then we need to create an alternative, which, as I suggested, was to cut the tops off and transplant them in your backyard in a little box. So this way, if you wanted to eat peyote, you would just have to go to the backyard and then eat your own peyote if you're worried about eating the peyote that's in the wild.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So you're saying it's more of a problem of just destruction of these pieces of land where the peyote is growing rather than just consumption of it that's the issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Let's go to the next one, and that's definitely very, very interesting.
Oh, by the way, excuse me, before we continue with the next question, there are many efforts, actually 5 efforts that I'm aware of, both in Mexico and in Texas, where peyote grows naturally, of consortiums that are raising funds to purchase like acreage of land in the natural habitat and protect them so that the peyote can continue to flourish in its natural habitat. But of course, this takes a lot of financial support because they need to purchase the land. Like in Texas, the land is private. There's really no federal lands or state lands where peyote grows. It grows on all private land. If you understand what I mean, is that it's growing on somebody's ranch.
Mm-hmm.
So the native people, when they want to harvest peyote, they have to ask permission or else jump a fence and then go and harvest the peyote. So usually, you have to pay a rancher or something. But if we were able to purchase land in the area, then this would secure areas where peyote could grow in its natural habitat.
And did you say there were organizations currently working on developing this?
Yes.
Do you have any names of them? Maybe we could post them in the chat.
I apologize, but I have a website. It's Kuauhtli.com. And on the website, people could write to me. I will receive an email, and I will research this and make these available for those people that are interested. And then I'll get the guys' names, and one of them is through ASU. There's a professor at ASU and then there's another organization in California and one in Arizona, another one in Southern Arizona, and I think there's one in Texas. And then of course in Mexico also there's some people. So I will provide that information if people need that.
That would be wonderful. I know we have some wonderful people on the webinar here, and some people are always just looking to help out. So we have your website posted in the chat there. So if anyone's looking to help fund that or donate, make sure and get a hold of Kuauhtli and see if you can do some aid there.
I mean, if somebody wants to send me $1 million, I'll be happy to buy a ranch in Texas, and you guys can come and eat all the peyote you want on it.
There very well might be someone on this chat that you never know, right? So
okay, well, good.
Doesn't hurt to ask and put it out there. So next question we have is from Gustavo. What are the main advantages of peyote over antidepressants in the treatment of mental disorders like anxiety and depression?
Well, one of the main benefits is that peyote is actually a cure and not just a treatment. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the primary advantage. That I mentioned this particular case in Perth, in Australia, of a woman who came to the peyote ceremony, and she was asking if she should still take her anxiety pills while she was participating in the ceremony. I suggested to her that she didn't, that she doesn't take them, and she didn't. And in the morning, she said she had never felt so good. So I offered her like a 13-day treatment. The following year that I went, she came to the ceremony and said she hadn't taken the prescription for the entire year, and that basically she was feeling great, that it had actually cured her anxiety. And the same could be said for depression. People that I know are taking, certain names. I forget all the different names of these chemicals that they're taking, but at least on a couple individual cases, they were able to stop taking their antidepressant pills. And if they did start feeling depressed again, they could take some peyote and it would make them feel better. for the time that they were being depressed. They felt depressed, so that they had it readily available, so in this way, the person could, didn't have to take them on a daily basis, these chemicals, because they're very toxic. I know, I'm sure you're aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is, I guess, two of the major advantages is that one, it can actually reverse the effects of the lack of hormone production. And then it can also be taken for moments when a person does feel, anxiety or does feel depressed. So
Mm-hmm.
it can be used as a remedy for these moments.
That's very interesting. So would you say these work on multiple levels, physical, mental, and of course spiritual, like beyond the physical? What exactly does the healing?
Well, I think people are becoming more aware that trauma, human trauma, whether it's a war or abuse or, addictions, and this affect your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
or if you want to call it your energetic body. I don't know. When I
Yep.
eat a lot of peyote, I become very aware of my energetic body, which some people could call it's part of your aura and all this. So traumas are stuck in your energetic body. And the peyote spirit, which also peyote has another name in some of our native languages. Besides peyote, which I explained means to illuminate your heart. There's also a name that is very common, which is called Temazcal. And what this name actually means is the spirit who can do miracles, or the spirit who can do wondrous deeds, or something in English I can try to translate it like this, who can do magic for people. And part of this magic is taking you back to a traumatic situation and actually reversing the effects of that trauma. Like if you lost your self-worth, or if you were, you felt disrespected, it'll get you your self-respect back. It will get you your dignity back. It will make you feel whole again. And in this way, it cures the spiritual uh, the spiritual harm that was done to your spirit that's affecting your physical being.
That could help cure so much. I mean, even when you say that, even just, a lot of the problems with addiction have to do with traumas and whatnot, and in early childhood. And if you could really go back and fix that and cure that with taking peyote, I think there'd be a lot of people interested in doing that.
One of the instruments that we use in the peyote, the Native American church ceremonies, is called a water drum. And this water drum, it's a metal kettle with a deer hide, and inside the water drum is about half filled with water. And this rhythm is mimics the first sound that you heard or became aware of when you were a fetus, which is the heartbeat of your mother.
Hmm.
And then you became aware of your own heartbeat as a fetus. So this water drum has the same rhythm effect of a baby's heartbeat. So it's actually like what they would call birth regression in
Interesting.
common terms. Yes. So you ingest the peyote, you're listening to this water drum most of the night. And this vibration of this water drum actually can take you back to a moment when you were born,
Wow.
and make you feel this innocence, make you feel this, like when you took your first breath, how wonderful it felt to be alive.
With that purity and innocence.
Yeah.
No conditioning from this lifetime anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from Jordan out of Winnipeg here, and he asks, as someone living in Canada right now, should I be responsible for planting peyote for others aside from myself?
Of course, I would say yes to this, because you know if you study the ancient or even the modern native societies, peyote is a plant that's used for many remedies. Not, it's used as an antibiotic. Like older people, like if they have a cut and it won't heal, you put the peyote powder on there and it heals it. It's used for, they put some buttons in alcohol and they use it for their joints, or for different things.
Hmm.
So peyote is like a medicinal plant. It's like rosemary or lavender or St. John's or wort or something. It's a very beneficial as a medicinal plant. So if you're growing it in your garden, you could probably treat someone for different ailments. So it's very good for your cornucopia of medicinal plants if you're a person that likes to use plants for healing purposes.
Mm-hmm. You might as well just add it to your garden and to your herb box, right? Because it has so many benefits as you described there. It looks like we're just waiting for Kuauhtli to reconnect here. Can you still hear me? Are we still live? It looks like he might have lost his Wi-Fi connection, so we'll just wait for him to rejoin us there. But everyone live here, if you want, you can add a question to the question box. We still have about 40 minutes left in the webinar, so feel free to do that. And you can also give a shout out on the chat and let us know where you're from as well. And in the meantime, I know Michael is going to work on getting Kuauhtli back here for us. So feel free to add a few more questions and hopefully he can rejoin us again soon. While he's gone, I'll just mention that we did receive some pretty amazing testimonials from you guys last week and in the last episode. And just thank you so much for that. A lot of work has gone into the webinar series to bring these amazing speakers to you guys. And they're coming to you from all over the world. As you can see, we have Kuauhtli from Brazil today. And we are just so appreciative of all of the wonderful feedback that we've got from you guys from that. So thank you so much. And we hope we can live up to bringing season 2 to you as just as good as season 1. So looks like we still have him here with us while Michael tries to get him back on the screen here. This might be a good time to take a washroom break if you need to. Otherwise, I can tell some jokes, but that probably wouldn't go over very well. And while I have you guys here, I'll just remind you that we do have 1 week left in the fundraiser campaign. So we are about $11,000 short. And as you know, all of the research that MAPS does is through fundraising and through donation only, and it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have those donations. So we want to thank everyone who has already donated and everyone who's going to donate within the next week to make up that $11,000 so that we can hit our goal. And once that is done, we will let you know because we're going to be having an online donor appreciation event, which will be ideally within the first or second week of September. We will definitely let you guys know. It'll be free. We're going to stream it. And it's going to be a huge thank you to everyone who's helped out. So it looks like we have him back. Let's see if our tech team can work on getting him back on screen here.
Okay,
yay, there you are.
I don't know what happened. I tried putting both of these. I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's all good. We are very
Okay.
happy to have you back.
Okay.
So I think we were talking about growing peyote and having it in your garden. I think that's where we left off.
Yeah, peyote is very easy to grow. It is one of the slowest growing plants on the planet. But do not be deterred because all you need to do is have the proper alkaline soil, water, and sunlight, and they will grow. In about a year, they'll grow.
So have
Trust.
patience.
Yeah, no, once you get your garden going, sorry, someone called. Once you get your garden going, you can get like 50 buttons, which are, you can put in a little box, and I'll be happy to send them to you in Canada. I'm speaking to the people in Canada. I can send these to you, and you can plant them and they grow very close together. So after about a year of putting them in a windowsill, someplace in a planter, you will have your little peyote garden going, and I recommend this for everyone.
That would be amazing. Maybe we can get a group of people who are interested in having one, and we can, put a big shipment or order through. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I have some friends on Salt Spring Island, some friends in Vancouver and Montreal, in Toronto, uh, and also right there around Nelson. They have huge garden. They have big gardens already growing from the peyote that I took. I actually took it to them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Is there any special care in regards to ceremony that needs to be done around the peyote to help it grow and just nourish it?
Well, I do. I mean, yes. Peyote is like a plant, so it's very sensitive to what's going on around it, and also very sensitive to how you treat it. And in Texas where I live, I water my garden every day. Like some people say, you water your peyote every day? I go, yeah. I show them with my garden hose watering them because they actually are closer to being a succulent than actual cactus. They don't have spines and they like water. They just don't like they don't like to live in soggy soil.
Mm-hmm.
So like this potting soil, sometimes it just stays too moist for them. They like sandy, alkaline soil that they drink and then it turns dry. So you can wait and let the soil be dry a couple of days and then water them again. But if it's like Texas where I live, it's really hot. So I water them in the morning. By the afternoon, the soil's already dry. But they had the opportunity to drink, yeah. So then they drink water every morning and they get really big fast.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. All good information.
Mm-hmm.
Another question we have here, and this is from Jordan as well. Are music, dancing, and the outdoors necessary for the legalization of psychedelics?
Could you repeat the question? I'm trying to understand the.
Yeah, for sure. He says, are music, dancing, and the outdoors necessary for the legalization of psychedelics? Maybe if you want to post in the chat and elaborate on that, Jordan. While he's doing that, we also have another question from him in the meantime. Is there a dosing pattern to peyote to avoid adverse reactions?
Peyote has no adverse reactions. In other words, no one has ever overdosed on peyote. Ever. Like there's no such thing as overdosing on peyote. Now, if you eat a lot of peyote, you might start perceiving the energetic lines in the energetic field. You will become very keen. You will become very aware of what's going on. And this I can guarantee you also, that if you eat a lot of peyote, you're going to become very super sensitive and very perceptive.
Is it good to do that slowly and gradually? Because I know, similar with meditation, the deeper you go, you become more perceptive to those same things. And if it happens quickly, sometimes people can be a little bit scared. So doing that, would you recommend, doing that gradually over a period of time and then building up to a larger dose?
I mean, it depends on the individual, I would say. You know, most people, when they come to the ceremony, I give them massive doses, like right off the bat, because this is the best way to get to know peyote. If you want to dabble in it, I mean, this is okay too. But for ceremonies, I always just, give people large quantities. In England, for example, there was a arrest of one of the foremost ayahuasca leaders there some years back, like about 13 years ago. They apprehended his shipment of ayahuasca. So then for some time there was no ayahuasca ceremonies in England during
Hmm.
this period while he was going to court. So one of my friends said, well, why don't you bring peyote? You know, no one, everybody's scared to do ayahuasca ceremony. So why don't you bring peyote? So the first time I went, I took these huge buttons and I gave all the participants one large button of peyote. And basically that's all it really took for them to feel the effects, the psychedelic effects, I guess you would call it, of peyote. And yeah, even one of those guys eventually liked peyote so much, he's actually conducting peyote ceremonies now for the people who wanted to continue with the peyote ceremonies. He was already doing ayahuasca ceremonies, but he started coming to the peyote ceremonies, and after like about 5 years, I kind of ordained him to do the peyote ceremonies, and now he's conducting the peyote ceremonies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Hmm.
We'll maybe have to have you up again to Canada, or let us know when you're back up to Canada sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
We have another question here. It's coming from Antonio. He says, and you already touched on this a little bit, can peyote help us reconnect with nature and become more environmentally aware?
Absolutely, yes. Um, when you ingest peyote and you see, for example, the sunset, or you see the sunrise, or you're, near the ocean, you will see all of this with much more profound appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And also your vision becomes so keen. Like I remember when so we had an open air ceremony. Sometimes we do it in teepees, but then sometimes we do it open air. And when the sun's rising, this person described it as if someone was painting the sky with different colors of paint. Like first you see this, purple, then you see this blue, then, because your eyes become so perceptive, you actually see the changes of the light, of the color. And so this enhanced visualization of nature. I mean, you look at a tree with peyote, you could probably perceive every leaf and every shade of it because this is what peyote does. It increases your perception. So where you before just saw a tree, now you see the multiple branches, you see the different leaves and the shades. So this helps you to connect with the spirit of the
Mm.
tree. You start feeling the tree because when you see it as just a tree, then you treat it as just a tree. But when you start perceiving the 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 life in the tree, the variety of it, and eventually you begin to actually see the spirit of the tree, and you can actually get to a point where you can actually communicate with plants, and you begin to understand which plants are beneficial for you. Like a lot of people, they eat peyote and they go into the forest with someone who is learned about the plants in that area. And so peyote is very good for this, just to help you feel the plants that are being indicated to you as beneficial for different ailments or for just for health reasons. And even the plants that are poisonous, sometimes you can see the plant and you can look at like when you crack that little milky stuff, like you can actually feel that stuff would probably hurt you, if you ingested it. So it has this effect of connecting you with nature. Now, I like to hunt. I grew up in the native way, and we hunt deer and we hunt mostly deer and fish. And when you are hunting and fishing, and you capture these live animals, it gives you a profound love for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, in our culture, we believe the deer, they're eaten by mountain lions, they're eaten by wolves, so they're part of the food chain, and they're also eaten by humans that use this as sustenance.
Mm-hmm.
But when you eat peyote, you do we do a whole ritual for the deer. We
Mm-hmm.
don't just, put down a little tobacco, say thanks a lot. No, we actually bring the deer into our ceremonial space, and we give them a name. We pray for them before we go hunting, after we go hunting. When we honor them in our ceremonies, we bring their spirits into the ceremonies like this. So it gives you this loving relationship with plants and animals, with mountains. I was in Mount Shasta a couple of weeks ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was eating peyote in Mount Shasta. We did a ceremony there, and you really feel the energy of the mountain.
Hmm.
So like this, yeah, for the answer for, does it help you connect with nature? Absolutely.
That's absolutely beautiful. And in a way, it's kind of like just returning to that, to the roots, to the original way that maybe we were before all of these things got constructed with us, you know?
Kind of to kind of, I kind of caught the some of the idea what Jordan was saying about dancing and singing. So I will explain that when we do our dances, it's like we're praying to a particular energy.
Mm.
For example, we dance to the sun. We eat peyote, we dance to the sun. We eat peyote, we dance to the corn. We eat peyote, we dance to the rain. So like in this sense, the the actual songs and the dances they have a direction, whether it's to the great spirit or whether it's to a particular spirit. And this, I believe, will help people to understand that these plants, and not just only peyote, but if you take them, I'm trying to understand this term about recreational, because what do people mean by recreational? Do they mean taking it with alcohol and having a party where, I'm not sure what they mean, but it's okay to have a celebration with peyote. My friends who eat peyote in Israel, they made peyote chocolate, because this is very common, using sacred cacao, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
because cacao is a very sacred plant also. And it also
Mm-hmm.
has tryptamines and things that help your heart open. So cacao, even though you can go into most gas stations and buy a candy bar, before it was used for ceremonial purposes, cacao.
Hmm.
So you mix cacao with the peyote, and you add some honey and some coconut oil and some things. Well, they served it to everyone at the bar mitzvah of their 13th son, their 13-year-old son in Israel.
Oh, wow.
Because at these ceremonies, bar mitzvah is it's like a ceremony, but it's also a celebration. So some of the guests didn't even realize that they were eating peyote, and they had a beautiful celebration for this young man.
And it's like a rite of passage at that age, in a
Right.
way, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think this was an ingenious way to combine peyote and its uplifting effects, its ceremonial effects, its loving effects, its heart opening effects, in a situation where people would not commonly use it, or let's say it hasn't been used commonly up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an example how peyote can be used in a celebration, for a wedding, for a baptismal, for the coming of age, for things like this. People in our culture, they use it like this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And I definitely get where you're coming from on the dancing. I know some of the friends I have up here, do special dances. And I said, well, when is the performance? And she said, no, it's a healing dance. It's specifically for healing. And I know a lot of the traditions, do that specifically to bring about healing, and it's very sacred. So if we're looking at moving psychedelics into a clinical aspect and keeping that sacredness of it, potentially, dancing could be a part of that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. We in our language we say dancing. It equates to the words moving energy.
Moving energy, absolutely.
Yeah, and if
Mm-hmm.
you translate dancing in English in our language, so dancing, moving energy, it's all about energy. When you start eating peyote, you start understanding that it's all about energy.
Totally.
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
energy, everything's energy, the sun is energy, the water's energy, the plants are energy, we eat the plants, we're eating energy, you know, our thoughts are energy. So dancing is moving energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
physically moving your energy and harmonizing it with the energy that's around you, including the other people.
Mm-hmm. Dancing and singing, right?
Dancing and singing, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's usually the peyote ceremonies that we are conducting are all about singing and dancing. So if you want to come to a ceremony, this is what we eat some. We do an intention. We put an invocation. We eat peyote. Then we sing and we dance, and then we'll refresh the intention. The invocation, and then we eat more peyote. Then we sing and we dance some more, and then maybe we'll pray over some water. We'll drink the water. We'll eat more peyote. We'll do some more singing, some more dancing. And this is how we continue until the daytime. And then sometimes we even continue into the day.
That sounds like an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
We do have another question here, and it's from Sarah. And she says, I've heard of many people using psychedelics to heal and then experiencing a long period of extreme emotional pain and instability that might be seen as a healing crisis for months afterwards. Have you seen this with peyote? And what would you suggest people do to get through it? So I can read that again if you want to.
I think it's breaking up again.
Oh, looks like we're losing him. It must be a really good question. Let's see. Tech people in the background. Do we still have him here? Just lost him. All right, we'll see if we can get him back because that's a really good question, Sarah. So, oh, looks like he's back. Let's see if we can get him back on screen. The suspense, right? It's going to be worth it. So thank you guys all for your patience while we deal with these technical glitches here. We'll see if we can get him back on screen. And while we're waiting, just a reminder, last webinar of the series is next week with Wade Davis, and same time on Tuesday. And we should be ready to let you know, like I said, within the next couple of weeks about season 2. And he's back. And thank you guys again for your patience. Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. Just a shout out, by the way, to our tech team. These guys have been awesome through the whole Crowdcast webinar series, just in getting the speakers on screen, dealing with technical things in the background. We have Michael, who has been doing most of the episodes, and then we also have Kenny, who's been helping out, and as well as Lionel. So thanks, you guys, for all the work that you do behind the scene. And I know I just put even more pressure on you to get Kuauhtli back up here for us. So
Hello,
we have you back.
okay, well,
Wonderful.
great,
So I can read that. I'll read that question again.
okay.
It was a good one. So it's from
I ate some peyote and I prayed so that we could get back. And
perfect. It worked. Wonderful. I'll read it one more time here. So I've heard of many people using psychedelics to heal and then experiencing a long period of extreme emotional pain and instability that might be seen as a healing crisis for months afterwards. Have you seen this with peyote? And what would you suggest people do to get through it? And then she edited it. She said, I've also heard of it being referred to as a spiritual emergency.
okay, well, I haven't heard of it for peyote. Not to say that it hasn't happened, but I haven't heard of it. I have heard of people going through this in a ceremony, like for a night. In fact, a woman in Canada was the person that comes to mind in this island, Salt Spring Island.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to the ceremony, the first ceremony she ever came to. She had developed a lump in her throat, which um, the doctor told her that she was probably going to have a surgery or something and do some biopsies and things like this. And she came to a tipi and she ate one peyote button and then had one of the most difficult nights of her life, like vomiting, crying, etc. But in the morning, she felt her throat, and she said that the lump had disappeared. And when she went to the doctor was amazed and said that the lump was gone. And this woman holds a ceremony every year. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. She has a ceremony every year just to give gratitude to
Wow.
this experience. Which I don't know if this could happen for everyone, but it happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
So I did hear about this. I mean, how this could happen. Now, of people having lasting spiritual, I would say if this happened, which I don't know that it has, but I would recommend going back and because sometimes in the ceremonies, people start, like I said, dabble with peyote and they'll eat a little bit and it might start working on them and like bringing up some things,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have enough energy to resolve it. So then they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So here they are sitting in a ceremony, beautiful ceremony, flowers, beautiful music, but they're stuck with their trauma half released.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to explain to them, you need to eat a little more peyote. But in their mind, it's the peyote that's causing them their discomfort.
Right.
And many times it takes observing another individual that is in the same situation, but that does take a big spoon of peyote powder or a big button and then releases all of this. And then you see them smiling, they're like, I'm back. And then I pointed out, I thought, could you tell these other people who are like stuck with all their trauma that all they need to do is eat a little more peyote? Because people are like this. It's hard to convince them of the benefits of plants if they're unfamiliar with them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. I tell them don't blame it on the peyote.
Well, like you said, it's all energy, right? And if it's stuck there, you just have to get it moving again.
Yeah, so peyote gives you energy to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite experience with peyote that you'd like to share with us?
Wow, like 1,000 different moments came into my mind all at once. But I guess one of them that does come to my mind, and it has to do with my children. I have a daughter, and she married a young man from the sun dance. We do sun dancing. I do a lot of other ceremonies besides just peyote. But in the morning, can you still hear me?
Yep, I can still hear you. You were just cutting out a little bit, but we can still hear you.
Is a very powerful spirit, and actually, that's what my name means, Kuauhtli. I was baptized with this name in the Sundance. Anyway, so I was praying for my daughter, and I was like, "We're gonna send this eagle spirit into the sky to bless for your life." So her and her husband were singing with this water drum. No, he was hitting the water drum. She was singing, and when the sun was rising in the morning, the clouds formed an eagle, and the sun was in the perfect center of it, like this.
Wow.
And this is how nature reaffirms your
Mm-hmm.
intentions, your prayers. And I love my daughter a lot. So she was born on my birthday.
Oh, wow. What a blessing.
Yeah. So to see something like that in a ceremony, to see how the universe, the sun and the clouds and the sky and the fire and everything kind of reaffirm your prayers, if you want to call it like that, your spiritual invocations.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty magical.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And it's
Hmm.
nice to know that we're, as a human, we're not, the largest thing in the universe, too, right? There's a lot of other things at play and other um, areas of perception that, maybe we aren't at yet. So,
Shannon, I want to mention something. A good friend of mine is in prison right now for organizing ayahuasca ceremonies.
wow.
And yeah, so I want to put some prayers for her. If anybody's listening, she's in Austria, and her only crime is this. She's a beautiful woman. She's has a little boy about 10 years old. She was in her apartment, and all she was doing was helping people, participate in ayahuasca ceremonies. And the police came, arrested her. She's been in jail and she's going to go to court on September the 15th. So if anybody can light a candle for her and
Mhm.
just ask for her, the judge to release her.
Would it be appropriate to share her name with us, or should we just
Yeah,
put
her,
the
yeah, her
intention?
name, yeah, her name, she's actually of Russian descent, and her name is Jelena, Jelena.
Jelena.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and that's her only crime, just organizing ayahuasca ceremonies to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Patricia's asking. It's Jelena, Jelena. Maybe if you can put it in the chat there, Michael, for her. Yes, we will definitely put some positive intentions and prayers out there for her. Thank you for sharing that.
She's been in prison for 2 months, and they used this COVID thing because she's actually from a different country, so they had her isolated for 2 weeks. She couldn't even talk to a lawyer. I mean, what people go through because of what you could say is the misunderstanding or the criminalization of these plants, especially how beneficial they are. The United Nations has already made a declaration. If you Google it, you could find a declaration about ayahuasca saying that the benefits of ayahuasca and how it should be legalized. You know, the United Nations recommended for ayahuasca
Mhm.
to be legalized in every country. So, you know, there's a group called ICERS, an international group of lawyers who come to the rescue of plant practitioners all around the planet. So they've intervened and are helping her attorneys to prepare her defense. And a lot of it is just educating the judges and, you know, the people who are unaware of the benefits of all of these plants, you know,
Mhm.
and helping humanity, you know, get back to some kind of sanity.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And a lot of people, sometimes forget the sacrifices that the people bringing the medicine forth and forward are making, just to do that. So, it's
yeah,
definitely good to keep them in our prayers and to make sure that, A, the medicine's respected, and B, that it's given reverence, and that we remember, the sacrifice that shamans and elders and these people are making, like yourself, and bringing the medicine forward. So thank you for that. And on that
yeah.
note, I just wanted to see if you had any final words for us, because we're almost at time here. So if there's any final words of wisdom that you wanted to share with us, before we close here.
What can I say? People always say that my famous words are just eat more peyote, you know. You're feeling sad, eat peyote. You're feeling tired, eat peyote, you know. If you're feeling out of sorts, you know, they asked this 90-year-old man who who was the son of a famous peyote roadman in Oklahoma, and he was born premature, and the doctor attending said, "I don't think this child's going to make it." So his mother made him some peyote tea and put it in a bottle and gave it to him like minutes after he was born.
Wow.
And he lived to be like 90 some years old. I don't know. I don't want to give false information. He was the president of the Native American Church for many years.
Oh,
Anthony
wow.
David, and yeah, Anthony. And they would ask him, well, what does peyote make you feel? And he goes, it makes me feel good.
Well, we've definitely learned a lot about it today. So thank you so much for sharing, the history and all the benefits, and some of your stories as well. We really appreciate having you here, and it's definitely an honor to have you. So thank you so much for joining us today, all the way from Brazil.
Yeah, well, good luck. I was in Texas last week, but I have relatives here, so I had to come visit them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to say thank you also for all the efforts that MAPS and all the organizations like yours that are doing to change this tide, you know, turn the tide and do medical research and also ceremonial reverence like this, you know, honoring the native cultures and the traditional uses of all of these plants. So thank you also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, hopefully, maybe when all of this COVID stuff is kind of over with here a little bit more, maybe we can see you in person up in Canada sometime. So,
Yeah, and thanks all your listeners for their nice comments too.
mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, Kuauhtli.com. If somebody wants to get more information, they can just take my name off of the webinar notice and just add .com on that. My son set it up for me. I don't do these things, but my son he helps me out. So thank you very much for that.
Wonderful. Yes, we'll put it in there. It is already in the chat there for you.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, so thank you very much, Anna and Michael and all your listeners. I hope you guys have great success with all your endeavors too.
Yes, you too. Thanks again. Thank you so much.
All right, have a nice evening.
You too.
Oh, here, one last.
Oh, Michael, we'll bring him back there for 1 second. See if our tech team can do this. I think we cut him off there.
He already hung up. But anyway,
There
I
you
wanted to give you
are.
guys I wanted to give you guys a virtual blessing
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
just to keep it on the ceremonial sacred level.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
We
So,
appreciate that. Thank you.
oh, all right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
So, in closing, I would like to take this time to thank all of those that have helped make the webinar series possible. And very special thank you to our guest, Kuauhtli, for joining us today. Thank you to all of our volunteers and all of our sponsors. And most importantly, thank you to all of you for being here to support this series, these speakers, and this important research. So just a reminder, our final episode is going to be next Tuesday, August 25th with Wade Davis. So make sure and submit your questions ahead of time. You can actually log right into Crowdcast, go right into the episode and submit your questions without even getting the link to it. Our full lineup will be viewed on our webpage again at mapscanada.org/webinar. And just a reminder that all episodes have been recorded, so you can log back into your Crowdcast at any time and watch all of the episodes if you want, right in a row. Thank you again for attending, and we look forward to seeing everyone on our next and final episode. And thank you again to our guest speaker today, Kuauhtli. It was so amazing having you on. So we'll see everyone next week. Bye.